Hello and welcome back to the Argyle DataX Unite, Data and Analytics Done Right. My name is Michael with Argyle. I have a couple of notes before I turn things over to our esteemed speaker. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Also, poll questions can be found under the polls tab on the right-hand side of your console next to chat. And now, without further delay, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Tom Hablitzel, Vice President, Information Management with DataVale. We're excited to have Tom for his thought leadership presentation titled Harnessing the Power of the Cloud to Solve Analytics Challenges. Tom, welcome. We're so happy to have you with us here today. Over to you.
Michael, thank you very much, and welcome everybody. Look forward to the presentation today. What we're going to be talking about is really cloud analytics and how we use it to really solve some of the analytical challenges that are out there today. Just a brief bio for me. I've been doing this probably for over 30 years. Very instilled with what we're doing around the analytics, especially as we move to the cloud. When we look at what some of the emerging cloud trends are, it's really the market is shifting really from technology-based migrations to business outcome-based solutions. And we look at analytics. Analytics has very much become not a technology driver, but really focused on providing business outcome, providing the data to make business decisions, whether it's improvement in the efficiency of the business, reduction of cost, or a variety of other areas. It's really moving towards a business outcome. When we look at the cloud journey, what we're talking about really is the migration, the modernization, and the optimization. Going through those three steps to migrate your application, to migrate your analytics into the cloud, modernize it, leveraging the technology that's out there. But technology is an enabler, and then optimizing it. We also see applications shifting from legacy to more software as a service and cloud native, with container management, application architectures, microservices, serverless, things of that nature moving to the forefront, as well as becoming VM-centric. 85% of organizations will use containers by 2025, according to Gartner. And what we're also seeing is new roles. DevOps is becoming a common theme out in the marketplace today, and a lot of people are executing application development or analytics migrations via DevOps agile capability and strategy. When we look at really a survey also by Flexera, 50% of the workloads in the data are now in the cloud, with 60% for small, medium businesses. 89% of the companies are going multi-cloud, not focusing on one area, and that's because as they move into SaaS type applications, it all depends upon what that application, which may be the right fit for the business, may be dependent on one cloud technology. It could be Oracle, it could be AWS, it could be Azure, it could be Google. But right now, the majority of applications or the majority of clients are moving towards either Azure or AWS. And really, they're being equally considered for new cloud needs. Google is gaining momentum, but it's still behind AWS and Azure. And analytics and database as a service and package as a service offerings are actually moving to the forefront. Also, cloud providers are taking over the best of breed monitoring, DevOps, management, et cetera, based on the survey from Flexera. When we look at what is driving towards the cloud, and what the business outcomes that organizations are looking for, it's really around two major areas, growth and efficiency. When we look at growth, we're looking at things such as innovation, the development of new business models, products, markets. How do I now bring the data to help drive decisions in those areas? Looking at what the opportunity is for new products, for new markets. How do I look at the data that I have today? And this is really where some of this comes in with the AI and the machine learning. Building out a hypothesis or a model to look at what the data is telling you and being able to drive that forward, but also focusing on new customer engagement models. How am I interacting over the web or through a multi-channel strategy with my clients my providers, my partners, et cetera, but also looking at it to drive a competitive advantage, looking at mergers and acquisitions, business continuity, agility and time to market, and rapid business insights. In an efficiency standpoint, it's really around improved collaboration, cost efficiencies, getting economic, flexible economic models and rapid deployments, but also looking at reliability and stability, high availability disaster recovery, compliance and security, as well as looking at moving to the cloud, really for that overall flexibility that the cloud provides, the ability to scale, the ability to grow, and to decompress when you're not using the data or not using the space on the cloud. When we look at the CEOs and what their roles are, what they're focusing really from towards the cloud, and I'm going to focus more on, the CDO, the Chief Data Officer. They're looking at data security and risks, data science, analytics and BI, customer data. You've got MDM data integration. But really what you're focusing here across the board, which every one of the C levels are looking at data and analytics, whether it's the CIO, CTO, whether it's the Chief Marketing Officer, whether it's the Chief Data Officer, the CFO, predominantly from profits and profitability, understanding that management information and forecasting, leveraging the data that sits in the organization from a historical perspective to try to forecast the future. And around the COO is really looking at the data from an operational excellence and profitability side of it. So really, when we look at analytics in general, in the cloud, every level at the C level, or each of the organizational C level roles, are focusing on one way or another on analytics and driving towards that to get better insights. We have moved very much into data is becoming a strategic asset for the organization and data-driven decisions. Where if you go back a few years, you had very much from an ERP perspective, more of, systems of record. Then when the web was introduced, we became into systems of engagement. We're now in the evolution of really systems of insight and leveraging the analytics predominantly in the cloud to drive decision-making and use data as a strategic asset. If I look at the outcomes by adopting, what organizations are looking for from adopting to the cloud, and there's really a combination of two things here on the chart. The green bar indicates really what their first choice is, with the blue being the sum of the top three. But we're looking at it from IT modernization, improved efficiency, increased data security, and improved productivity is really being the top four areas that people are really, or the outcomes that they're being achieved by adopting to the cloud. This was a study that was done in 2020 by Gartner. So really, when you're looking at it about growing the business or organizational transparency, those are to the bottom. It's really around getting more agile, getting more capabilities, getting more productivity, increasing your efficiencies, and modernizing the IT infrastructure is really some of the top outcomes that are being achieved by adopting to the cloud. When we look at cloud analytics, well, what is it? Analytics is the process of gathering, cleansing, transforming, and modeling data with the goal of discovering useful information to support decision-making. That's nothing new, but you're also looking at it as analytics is to be able to make data accessible, useful, and actionable, which leads to digital transformation. The cloud aspect of it is really utilizing modern cloud technologies to really, generate more, to achieve goals with lower cost, faster scalability, and agile implementation, but leveraging those modern technologies to be able to really achieve that in a faster, more effective, scalable way moving forward. So where are companies really investing in cloud analytics? And this was an IDC study that when we looked at analytics in general, 32% annual growth for moving to the cloud versus 13% annual growth from on-prem. So what we do see here is we see that companies are investing in cloud analytics. They're moving their on-prem to the cloud or initiating new opportunities in the cloud moving forward. So when we look at a poll study that we did, and I know that a lot of people have put in here, around where is your organization in the cloud? Most have really not started. Are they in the evaluation? But when we look at the results, what people are looking at from this perspective is 13% of you have not started, 27% are in the evaluation and planning stage, 53% are in some hybrid cloud environment, 7% of you are 100% in the cloud, but every one of you wants to move to the cloud in some way. Now, a study that we did at DataVale pretty much is very equivalent to what actually the results that are being done on the poll question here. We found 57% of the respondents have some on-prem, some cloud from a hybrid side of it. 26% are in the evaluation. 10% are in 100% in the cloud. 7% have not started, but 0%, similar to what we get here, are not planning to move to the cloud. So everybody is moving to the cloud in one form or another, whether they're in the early stages, whether they're 100% there, or whether in a hybrid environment. But it's very good that everybody is starting to leverage analytics and data in the cloud. So why would we go to the cloud? Well, really it's around the driver for analytics innovation. The ability to focus and then incubate ideas, leverage design thinking, coming up with concepts about how you can actually leverage the data that's out there to drive decision making, refining those in an effective, cost-effective manner quickly, and to be able to move that forward, but providing some visibility and ideation and brainstorming. So really going through an innovation mechanism to look at the ideas, look at your hypothesis, look at what you're trying to do to grow your business and make it more efficient. So when we really look at that versus on-prem, typically when you looked at it on-prem, it was really around, let me onboard it. So I'm going to do either desktop or web-based training. I'm going to develop a prototype. I'm going to discuss the results of the prototype in a pilot, and then I'm going to put it into production. What you have the ability with the cloud is really to get more into the innovation and manage innovation. You're attracting users with emerging capabilities. You're developing prototypes. Prototypes are also becoming minimum viable products. Companies are stepping forward and saying, let me start small, build something as a minimum viable product, and then be able to understand what it is, refine it through a constant incubation, design thinking process to then generate really metadata-powered collaboration, focusing on high-quality analytics and a solution that has a business outcome and meets the goals of the business. This whole process can also be utilized when you're getting into AI, when you're understanding really what's out there from an ideation, building the minimum viable product, the hypothesis, to look at actually what the results would be, look at what the results are, and then modify it, change it, and put it into production. But really leveraging the cloud in a more effective development cycle to really manage innovation and provide innovation versus an on-prem environment, which would be slower, not as flexible or scalable. So poll number 2, what do you believe will be the benefits? Faster deployments, enhanced security, better performance, faster insights. The results of the poll question right now for the audience today is faster insights is number 1, better performance number 2, scalable solutions number 3, enhanced security and faster pace of innovation number 4, faster deployments and cost efficiencies is number 5. Well, when we actually did the results, we looked at it as we went forward, and it really tailed to a lot of the same results. But what do organizations want from their analytics? All right. Self-service is really getting to the forefront. A lot of organizations from an analytical perspective are starting to put the reporting capabilities and the data access out to the business. Give them the ability to do data exploration and discovery in a self-service model. The business needs the data integrated into a single trustable data store. The issue here is the foundation. When you move to the cloud, or even if you're on-prem, it's the foundation of the data that is going to help you drive the decisions. If you move to AI or machine learning and your data is garbage, you're going to have the old adage, garbage in, garbage out. It needs to be single trusted data that has to be high quality for you to have the results that you're looking for. You're going to want to answer questions across the business. You're going to look at new and traditional data. And what I mean there is you're going to start wanting to bring in external data sources to really marry that up with what you have, whether it's enhancing the data that's out there from marketing, whether it's enhancing the data with social media or other areas to really understand analytics and look at collaborations. You know, you're looking at a low total cost of ownership, a 360-degree view of a customer, leveraging it through the cloud analytics to understand that what's the interaction of that individual organization to your organization, and how do you improve upon that? The analytics system should respond quickly and cheaply to the changes in the business, needs to be scalable and quick, fast response. So when we looked at it overall, the top three: scalable solutions, better performance, faster deployments, faster insight into the data, which strangely enough here was 43% of our respondents versus 25% of you wanted to see that as number one. So it's really a shift of some of the different benefits: faster innovation, cost efficiencies, and enhanced security, which really were down towards the bottom. But it's really a matter of looking at the scalability and the performance of analytics in the cloud and the flexibility that's there and that it provides, that reasons why companies are moving to analytics in the cloud. But it can be challenging because if you're looking at the technology infrastructure, the architecture, the challenge is also around risk and governance issues. How do you look at data quality? How do you look at security? How do you make sure you're building in the audit balance and controls to enhance and ensure data accuracy so your foundation is solid? Adding more agility, integrating multiple data sources, making data and analytics more usable. From a Gartner perspective, these are some of the top internal challenges that exist today in the marketplace in adopting data and analytics in the cloud. There are ways to overcome each of these challenges, but it takes time. But you're looking at it also from a maturity aspect, all right? And the reason I bring in the data maturity or the analytics maturity aspect here is most of the companies that we talk to are really getting focused more on running the business or measuring and monitoring the business, utilizing key performance indicators, understanding how that business is performing today. But to really move into the cloud, with what people are looking at, you're really trying to get market agility and differentiation. You're trying to leverage the analytics, and this is where you're getting into prescriptive analytics, predictive analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning to really step up based on the foundation of the data to make that data-driven decision and leveraging data as an asset. And the cloud enables you to do that in a faster, more efficient manner. When you also look at it, what the cloud enables you to do is to remove data silos. Most organizations now are looking at the concept of a data lake. How do I actually put all my data into the data lake and then be able to separate that out into a data warehouse, to be able to look at that for machine learning, but being able to leverage it around the standard ETL, extract, transform, and load, more into a extract, load, and transform, getting the data into a data lake, standardizing the data there, and then being able to use that as an asset, not only for data warehousing and for analytics, but be able to use that as an integration platform to other applications and other databases that exist in the environment. So that's really getting to modernization versus building data silos that exist separately. So what are some of the benefits of cloud native analytics? A scalable data lake. You can have a purpose-built data service. That can be for integration, that can be sharing data between applications, that can be looking at your integration strategy around how the data is going to move between applications and really build those services for that purpose. You get seamless data movement, unified governance, and really becoming more performant and cost-effective. On the governance side of the equation, when you're actually looking at your data, particularly in the cloud, even on-prem, you've got to put certain governance controls around the data. You've got to be able to look at it from a business perspective, and as you're getting data issues, you need to be able to solve those through data stewardship and through a governance process moving forward. So when we look at the cloud journey, what we recommend is that you're not looking at it and saying, let me just jump, but take a step back, build a roadmap, look at your strategy and your plan, look at your assessments, do proof of concepts, build out minimum viable products, then do your migrations and modernizations. You can migrate your data into the cloud, but then start leveraging that from a modernization, utilizing some of the cloud technologies that are out there, and then really optimizing that into more into managed services. So what we really see from some of the workload priorities for 2023 is really, from an application perspective, the repurposing of the application, rehosting, replatforming, or refactoring the application. From an analytics perspective, what we're seeing is people are moving from an on-prem, they're migrating it and then modernizing it. In some case, it may be, I need to migrate it from an existing data warehouse, whether it's Oracle or SQL Server or other database-based data warehouses, and I want to move it now towards, say, a Redshift, or I want to move it to Snowflake, or I want to move it to other technologies in the cloud. I may move it as it sits today into the cloud, and then I want to start optimizing it, taking advantage of what the technology provides as you go forward in the cloud journey. In moving, as you undertake your journey, what we recommend is building out a center of excellence. Center of excellence that really provides the partnership and the capabilities to really around cloud engineers, the solution architect, and the database administrator, all working in conjunction, and making sure that you have a well-architected approach, that the execution of the migration is holistic, and that you're optimizing it for performance, ROI or cost, but assessing the environment, making sure that your team is working together in a center of excellence focused on the strategic cloud initiative and understanding where they're going, how they're going, and how to move that forward. But providing the center of excellence of the capabilities, the understanding of the tools and technologies, training the people to make sure that they understand how to take advantage of the modern cloud technologies moving forward. Some of the best practices in moving to the cloud is get a clear view of your cloud strategy and align it. What are the expected benefits? What's the data strategy in the cloud? What are the constraints and what's the roadmap? Looking at your current state, use the cloud for experimentation and set the right migration approach. Putting analytics wherever the data is, utilizing the power of the cloud to scale, and use multiple clouds depending on your purpose, but enabling self-service analytics. We see a lot of organizations that want to move to self-service. You can't really do it on-prem. You've got to move it more into the cloud to provide that flexibility, that overall capability. And it's a lot more scalable within the cloud around the self-service. So why? Why move analytics to the cloud? Well, as a service of cloud, you can pay as you go. So your capital outlay, you're not going out and buying servers or hardware, infrastructure. You're leveraging what's in the cloud, and you have the ability to expand and contract as you go forward. So it's more of a pay-as-you-go model. You're getting the increased scalability to expand and contract as you go forward. You can provide faster insights through the flexibility of the cloud and the ability of innovation that I talked about earlier. You have an easier maintenance capability. You have the ability of getting to a stronger decision-making, leveraging the data. But the foundation of the data has to be there. You can start small, build out your minimum viable product, build out your proof of concept, and start growing that, seeing what the result is, and then being able to move that forward. And then looking at it from a cost savings, the agility, the scalability, and really look at your use cases to make sure it's going to solve new analytical requirements from the business. I'm going to take you through 3 case studies right now of where we've done work from small to large businesses that have moved to the cloud and the reasons for it. One is a major media company, one is a retail company, and one is a national broadcaster. So the major media company, really what they were trying to do is they were providing custom reports. Their IT staff was, I'm going to say, a little bit in structured such that every time that a new report had to be out there to be driven by a customer, they actually had to go and actually develop that as a custom report. And what they were finding with the on-prem solution that they had was the database software license was becoming cost prohibitive. All right, so they had a basic problem with the on-prem analytic environment is it didn't scale, it was costly, it was a bottleneck for IT, and it depended upon internal staff for report customization. What we actually did was we looked at what they were doing and we said, look, we could move this to the cloud, get you a serverless solution, reduce your database software license based on moving to the cloud, but also provide self-service capabilities for data visualization and data set delivery, as well as enabling the customers to generate their own reports with secure data, but automate that data movement, providing that for the self-service capability. So what we actually did, and I'll build this out a little bit, was we started really with the existing data source. We staged it, and this was in an AWS environment, so we went to a S3 bucket. We used Amazon RDS from the storage perspective for the data mart. And then we moved that out to QuickSight for self-service analytics. But what we also did was we used Glue to move it into an S3 bucket as well to deliver reports so that we could build and deliver data sets where QuickSight was enabled from a self-service. But for those companies and those customers that are looking for just standard delivery of reports, we could actually create the data set, deliver the report through an S3 bucket, and email that through a URL to the customer. So really what we were able to do is reduce cost, provide more flexibility, provide really more customer satisfaction, but also reduce the dependency on IT staff to develop custom reports. And then we actually enabled a REST API so that the customers could actually extract the data, bring that into their own environment, and do things that they wanted to analyze with the data. The second retail company was really the existing vendor solution was not providing the right capabilities for them to manage the business. The technology was obsolete. They needed to expand from B2B to B2C, and they wanted to increase additional data sources. So this company was actually a company that dealt with distributors, customers, direct sales, et cetera. So they were getting a lot of sales data that was really from a B2B perspective, but they wanted to be able to push sales out to the customer in a B2C environment. What we actually did, again through AWS, was we created a data lake solution for them to land all the data in one location, and then to be able to expand that and provide the analytics and reporting capability to run the business so that they would understand what products were actually being moved, how that product was being moved, where was actually shortfalls in the supply chain, and really get more of an overall capability for the business. But what that also did was really, we built it in a build run capability, whereas from a managed service perspective, we actually took over the running of the solution from the data loads, the reporting, and the governance to make sure the data works. But from a governance perspective, what we also needed to do here is the data from a distributor, they did not control the distributors as they were sending the data across, and they were giving them the ability to change the data. So we needed to have a governance process to manage the quality of the data and ensure that we actually had that moving forward. So from the business environment, it was from chains and wholesalers to a third party, to then to users for really looking at it from a common intelligence and then generating reports for over 300 consumers. That really was from marketing through finance, through product development, really across the business. But really what they were looking for was agility, flexibility, and the proactive control of the data. The environment here, really, again, the solution, we were pulling data not only from SAP, but from CSV and other files, from the individuals, from the distributors, and from the sources, putting that into an S3 bucket, putting that check in the data catalog, and eventually loading that into AWS Athena and generating Power BI reports on top of that for the analysts, for them to see exactly where were sales, what was occurring, and how things were moving forward. Third case study was a national broadcasting company. They had an existing data warehouse. It was on-prem, didn't meet the needs of the users, and they wanted to re-engineer it. All right, it really had obscure field names, which forces all reporting to go through a data scientist to be able to generate it. And external data was not integrated into the warehouse for trend analysis. External data here, when you're talking about a broadcasting company, there are certain standards around what market share they actually have and they don't have. And they wanted to bring that data in to understand how they can actually go and capture more market share, raise more money, et cetera. The existing environment was SQL Server, Tableau or Microsoft BI with Alteryx as the ETL tool. What we did from a solution was we needed to improve the flexibility, scalability, and overall capabilities to really ensure that the data was high quality and that actually the analysis could provide, the data answers that they were looking for in the analysis actually met the business outcomes that they were hoping to achieve. And we needed to improve and reduce the support. We needed to look at PII data and leverage the cloud. Here we built a modern data architecture. Where we had data sources from streaming, from prayers, and website data. We ingested it into an Azure data factory, stored it in an Azure data lake, and really looked at Snowflake as the data source, where we actually from a columnar database, and then use Power BI from a reporting capability. So hopefully you've gained some information, in terms of moving analytics to the cloud, some of the best practices, and some of the overall capabilities. I had a few questions in the chat. One of the questions early on when we did the poll question number 2 is, what recommendations do you have for dealing with objections based on security concerns from the C-level suite? There's a lot of ways to secure your data. The cloud, people think that the cloud is insecure. It is secure. You can come over there and be able to look at it and be able to secure the data. There's ways of doing it. One of the issues that you may have is really around personal information, and you can either encrypt that, obfuscate it, and be able to do things to really deal with the security side of the equation. What's the biggest hurdle to overcome design thinking methodology? I don't know if there is a big hurdle. I think it's really a matter of trial and error, going out and looking at what you're trying to do, put things in place, and to be able to move things forward. What are best practices to enable self-service analytics? From a best practice perspective, is really providing the environment, provide the capabilities so that people in the right architecture, but it really comes down from a foundational aspect. The data foundation for anything that you're doing in analytics has to be solid to be able to leverage and move forward.
Thank you so much, Tom. This was a wonderful presentation. I really appreciate you being here. I also want to thank everyone for joining us for fantastic thought leadership. Now, this session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. Tom, thank you so much for being here.
Michael, thank you very much. Appreciate it.